The Moto E5, E5 Play and E5 Plus are the linchpin of Motorola's entire budget line, being affordable and accessible. Hey there, it's Damien back once again for 9to5Google, and let's take a quick look at these devices and see if they're still worth picking up. If you didn't already know, Motorola devices all have a very distinct look, one that has barely changed across their entire lineup since the original Moto G and Moto X were released. And despite the different sizes of the E5 lineup, all have that rounded rectangle look, which includes plenty of bezel and even a fingerprint scanner on back. It's nothing spectacular and neither do we expect it to be. But the logo printed at the bottom bezel does look a little tacky, to be completely honest with you. Of these three models, only the smallest retains the ability to remove the backplate and replace the battery. The E5 and the E5 Plus are fully sealed. Pre-installed storage comes in at a 16GB capacity for all three variants, but luckily all three devices do retain the ability to add a micro SD card should you want that little bit of extra room. The displays on each unit are pretty great considering the price point. Absolutely nothing over 720p should be expected, and to be honest, the quality does vary pretty wildly between each model. The largest of the three, the E5 Plus, would have benefited from a 1080p display, but I can't complain too much as overall it's a pleasant experience here. The same can be said of the standard E5 model, but with the E5 Play being the very cheapest by some margin, it has a pretty lackluster panel. You can almost literally see each individual pixel if you look close enough. We've mentioned it already, but Motorola really do make one of the best variations of stock Android, and there's little bloat here to speak of, with only the Moto app being the major inclusion. Most of the pre-installed apps are Google stock, which means that the lack of space is slightly less apparent if it were chock full of terrible third-party duplicates. I like that Motorola and by extension Lenovo are continuing to stick to this incredibly light software alteration approach, and long may it continue. And considering the lightweight hardware, everything runs pretty smoothly. That doesn't mean there's no slowdown, because there is plenty, but the average performance is likely down to stock Android being less processor and RAM intensive. Just don't expect amazing multitasking and you'll be absolutely fine. Speaking of multitasking, 2GB of RAM is included in the E5 and the E5 Play, which isn't great for masses of multitasking, with the E5 Plus including 3GB. I wouldn't say that any excel in terms of performance, and neither does the Plus model feel particularly fast in comparison. They all seem to just get the job done with what they have to work with, and that does mean that not everything feels slick or refined, but it does mean that each model can manage a number of basic tasks well, just don't go expecting super performance. As for battery capacities, the E5 includes a 4000 mAh battery, the E5 Play with a 2800 mAh removable option, and the E5 Plus with a mammoth 5000 mAh battery. Such is a low power draw that these will easily get you through a day with absolutely no problems. The camera was one area that I wasn't expecting a great deal and was not disappointed or surprised. All three units have weak cameras but are capable of taking a solid, if unspectacular, picture. In any cheaper device, the camera is clearly first to be heavily downgraded to make way for more necessary hardware additions. Just don't expect anything other than subpar or average at best from any of these smartphone cameras and you won't leave disappointed. I must admit, whilst one of the very cheapest groups of handsets around, there is a great deal to like about the E5, E5 Play and E5 Plus. As an entry point, or a solid backup, or even maybe just an MP3 player with the ability to take a SIM card, the Moto E line provides a great option. If you're coming from a flagship device, then I wouldn't recommend getting one, but as a first smartphone, for instance for a child or an elderly relative, then the E5 could literally be the perfect new companion. If you'd like to read the full review of all three handsets or want more exclusively Android and Google related news, then head directly to 9to5google.com. As always, subscribe for more video content just like this, but until next time, this is Damien for 9to5Google signing out.